Welcome to the next episode of SEO on Air. I'm Steve Olenski, CMO of Stan Ventures. Our guest today is Dave Schneider, the CEO of Shortlist.io, a full-service digital marketing agency that provides businesses with services such as SEO, conversion rate optimization, A/B testing, and a lot more. Now, following a stint in the corporate world, Dave went, in his words, digital nomading around the world and visited over 60 countries in 5 years. There's some great stories there, I'm sure. In 2018, he launched Shortlist.io, and in 2023, he became CEO of what's called Philly Tech Entrepreneurs, a startup community in Philadelphia that hosts in-person networking events such as happy hours, panel discussions, and more. If that wasn't enough, Dave is the host of the Philly Tech Connect podcast and monthly marketing and business webinars. Dave, I don't know where you find your free time, but thank you for finding some time to come on our show. Welcome.
Hey, Steve. Yeah, it's a pleasure. My daughters are getting ready for daycare. Hopefully they will be in a good mood this morning, but you never know. So in any case, yeah, happy. Yeah.
Look, this is as real as it gets, right? So
yeah. This is real work from home lifestyle.
Exactly. So those who don't know, I'm born and raised in the city in Philly. Dave, I know you're not from the city, but your company is based in Philly. Is that right?
To a degree. I am in the city. I live in Philadelphia. I've been here 6 years. The majority of my company is in Macedonia. We have an office in Skopje, but technically, yes, it's an American company. And if you look on my Google My Business page, you will see a Philadelphia address. Yes.
So fantastic. Let's segue right into your company then. So, it started in 2018, right? So we're going on a little over 5 years, right? Going on 6.
Yeah, about 6 years.
So let's start there. We're talking about running an SEO agency, and managing that remote team that you mentioned that are primarily in another country. Talk a little bit about that. What the challenges, right up the bat, of course, would be the time difference, right? But let's talk to other agency owners or wannabe agency owners when it comes to starting a company and working with people in another country.
Yeah, it is kind of a crazy thing. I've gotten so used to it over the years. I don't think about as much about it these days. Yet, whenever I tell people, really, how does that work? How do you do that? I've been working with freelancers and contractors remotely for many years. And you're right, the time difference is probably the first hurdle to just kind of get over in understanding that you're not going to overlap 100%. When I wake up in the morning, there's usually quite a large backlog of Slack messages and things like that to get to. But then by noon, things have really calmed down. I feel like I'm basically working by myself. In some ways, that's kind of nice. You get because you don't overlap 100%. There's this clear period where this is the time for us to do meetings. This is the time for us to communicate. And then you have this period of maybe more like deep work where you can kind of do the one-on-one stuff without being pinged. But beyond that, I think the bigger thing is really just developing trust. There's a natural trust that gets developed from being near someone and seeing them every day and having kind of face-to-face conversations and just sort of knowing what they're doing and so where they are. That is not the case when someone works remotely. In, my very first startup, Ninja Outreach, when I had a remote team, I had the team using a tool like Hubstaff, which was basically like we'll call it time tracking app. It has a lot of features, but it was, for us, it was necessary because you need to know how much to pay everybody. They weren't on like a monthly salary. So they would basically tell us how many hours they'd work and then they would bill us. But it also gave you a sense of how much everybody was doing. You could potentially look at screen shares if you wanted to, although I think we might have turned that feature off, or I never really looked at it anyway. But in short, it was, it sort of gave you a little bit of that office management piece of things. But with Shortlist, we don't do that. The guys, really kind of wanted to be even more autonomous and they wanted to work on like a monthly salary and things like that. So we had to develop trust and an understanding of work getting done in the ways that actually matter, which is looking at productivity and output and KPIs and things like that, which is a much better way to approach actually measuring somebody's contribution to the company as opposed to like how many keystrokes per minute they've been doing or like how many hours they've been sitting around, whatever that may be. But it takes time. Yeah. It took us, probably a couple of years really even just to develop that relationship and vice versa as well. I say that largely, I've been saying this from the perspective of me trusting them, but also them trusting me, them knowing that I was actually an active kind of participant in the business, trying to, push the business forward and not just the guy who would show up, give some directives, and then see you tomorrow type of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I know, like, this is not your first rodeo when it comes to being an entrepreneur, right? You've launched, I believe, at least 3 or 4 other companies before this, correct?
Yeah. One of the bigger ones was called Ninja Outreach. So that was also a remote team of 20. It was a software business I bootstrapped for about 4 years. And so Shortlist functions slightly differently. Firstly, the business model is services, not software. And then, as I mentioned, the whole team is centralized in one area, whereas Ninja Outreach was really spread out globally. But there's also a lot of similarities with the whole remote distributed team and marketing tech.
Got it. So, and you graduated from Harvard.
I did.
And you did the corporate thing, right? For a
sort
few
of.
years.
I did it for about 2 years.
2 years, right?
So, I can't call myself like I've had decades of experience in the corporate world type of thing. I did a 2-year stint. I did like a juvie.
Yep. But then you did what you called the digital nomading, right? Talk a little bit about that. 5 years, 60 countries. That's amazing.
Yeah, that was not the original intention. We were thinking, my girlfriend and I at the time, now wife, we were thinking we would do the gap year thing, take a year off, do some travel, see the world, come back, maybe go to business school, kind of transition back into, the broader economy in the usual sense. What happened was living a life with zero responsibilities, traveling wherever you want is surprisingly addictive. You just you get very addicted to just showing up in a new place every day, every week, every month, and having new things to explore, new people to interact with it, new languages to overcome. And so the big, I think, question mark was, well, what do you do when the money runs out? Can you make enough money to prolong the trip? And that was why we started blogging. We started doing some online marketing, some SEO. We were selling links, which I think anyone who's in the SEO agency knows a little bit about how that works. And so through that, we were, funding the lifestyle, which was not particularly expensive because we didn't have a rent and a mortgage and children, and we weren't paying for daycare and things that we do now. But it was still, a couple grand a month usually. And so we had to kind of bridge that gap. And we were able to do that, with online marketing. And that was one of the big aha moments where you feel like, wow, you can actually make money online. This was back in maybe 2012, 2013, where, people were doing it, but it was not as prevalent as it is nowadays. Nowadays, we think about, the TikTok influencers and YouTube influencers, and there is this whole industry of people that, are earning their whole living online. And so it's not such a foreign concept, but 10, 15 years ago, whether or not this could really be done was still kind of TBD. So, once we established an ability to pay our way, we decided to just keep going. And that basically became 2 years, 3 years, etc., until eventually about 5 years down the line when we started to get a little bit older. We wanted to buy a house. We wanted to raise a family. We decided to call it quits.
What an incredible journey. What an incredible odyssey. I would imagine there's lots of stories and lessons from that time on the road, digital nomading. Share some of the lessons that you got from that trip that you still use today.
So the biggest thing actually is honestly working with people from other parts of the world. And that's because that was the first thing that I did when we were traveling. This was a completely new concept to me at the time. I read the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which just kind of revolutionized sort of entrepreneurship in that time. And he talked about virtual assistants and that whole concept. Immediately after reading that book, I hired a young lady from Bulgaria, and she was awesome with trip planning, and she was very affordable. And that I unbeknownst at the time, that became the model that I would take with me to the different companies that I started. Mm-hmm. And again, it's not just an understanding of that they are out there and that they are more cost effective than perhaps, working with talent in other areas of the world, but also how to manage somebody that you do not see every day, how to provide clear instructions and directives on what is necessary. I would say anybody who has probably worked with, a virtual assistant or something like that, and this might be true just in any case, has probably had the experience of you gave some instructions that you thought were clear, and then what you got back was not what you expected. Mm-hmm. And then as you take a look at what you actually provided, you realize that you didn't take the time to explain certain things. And therefore, you kind of got what you deserved. And so that has really kind of taught me about the need to be almost over communicative at times to make sure that I'm extremely clearly outlining and bullet pointing like exactly, what I'm expecting, particularly with someone that maybe I don't have like a deep working relationship with. So all those things I really kind of learned and mastered a little bit while I was traveling.
So yeah, there's a lot of lessons for leaders, small business owners, really of any size, right? To glean from what you just described in their day-to-day life. So I think that's amazing. I want to segue now into SEO and AI and trends and all that good stuff, which I'm sure you have a ton of thoughts and opinions on, which I'm very interested in hearing. So let me just start with, because that's the elephant, as we both know, Dave, in everybody's room, whether it's in SEO, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in advertising, it's AI. Right. So what are you seeing in terms of AI in terms of trends in SEO and search?
So I always start by looking internally, kind of where we found opportunities to incorporate AI in the agency. Primarily that's been in, the content creation and kind of strategizing. Different tools have just become excellent at creating outlines, writing maybe brief snippets, copy, things for social media, even longer form content. And so that has helped our writers, just increase their output. We haven't really replaced anyone with AI, and I don't really have any plans to, but we've tried to empower them with AI. And so that, I think it's a big area that we've noticed more opportunities. Whereas on the flip side, something like link building, as a service, I have not found that to be like particularly largely touched by AI. There's just too much human to human able to really replace parts of that workflow too much with AI. Obviously, there's a number of things being worked on in the AI industry that you can see how they could potentially come into the digital marketing space. For example, I've seen website or landing page builders that were really produced just entirely from AI, or we've seen AI videos and things like that. But they still, in my opinion, still don't seem quite there yet in terms of like the quality of what they put together. If I kind of think about creating a landing page for a client, I can't really just do that just from AI and just say, hey, I'm looking for someone to design the homepage of a venture capital website, whatever it is we might be designing. Nevertheless, we try to stay on top of all the tools and developments. There's a lot of changes going on. We just don't want to be caught off guard. So best thing you kind of do is just to try to stay aware of the latest enhancements and announcements and keep checking if there's a way for you to kind of incorporate into your flow.
Yeah, I mean, that's really, not to sound simplistic, but that's the approach, I give to when a CMO or marketers ask me my thoughts on AI. Number one, it's a tool, right? And it's like any other tool, it's got to be part of other tools in your toolbox, right? And it's not going to replace things or people per se. It will for sure, but it'll make things easier and more productive. And I still get this overriding sense, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this overriding sense of fear, right? And because we know how people are, and human nature is resistant to change in general, but this is something completely different for people. And I think the fear is getting a little rampant depending on what part of the world, the business world we talk about. But that's what I hear from marketers a lot is taking my job. What do I do? What should I be doing? Are you hearing, any kind of fear in people's voices, minds, thoughts?
Definitely. Yeah. I think there's always this like degree of like fear of the unknown and what could be happening.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of fear myself of, but I had that before AI too. I think when you run when you're running a business, you're always just a little like worried about some existential, meteor hitting everything. But, again, I can only kind of speak about, the way we've approached it personally, and that might not be every company. And it's true that it hasn't necessarily replaced anybody, but it may deter us from hiring somebody else. I think it's kind of the way to think about it. Like we're not necessarily firing someone who's been with us and doing good work, but we may not need to hire another person because the people that we have already internally are able to increase their output and they're able to manage more. And so in this way, it's not necessarily directly replacing someone's job, but it is in a way. It's just a different way of kind of looking at it. And so with that extra time that the internal employees have had, we've been able to just do more. We're more active on social media. We're finding different ways to maybe engage with the clients. We're just kind of finding ways to do more with less. So I haven't tried to make this as an opportunity to let somebody go. If someone is a member of the team and they do good work, we want to keep them. We want to just have them even take on more. But, we're probably less likely to hire another writer in the near future because, we've just increased our output by, 30% or whatever it is with the team we have.
It makes total sense. Hey, sorry for the interruption. We're going to get back to our show in one quick second, but stay with me. If you're in the need for anything SEO and or link building related, you need to do yourself one quick favor. You need to go to the website that's on the screen right now, stanventures.com. Go there, tell them Steve O sent you. The rest will take care of itself. Trust me, you can thank me later. Okay, SEO. Now you've been in this SEO game, if you will, or world for a while now. Let's just go back, 3-5 years. What are some of the changes that's happened over that time frame when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, SEO is a little weird. I feel like there are lots of changes and no changes at all. Obviously, something like AI being introduced has just kind of engulfed the industry of marketing tech, where now if you're not thinking about how to use it and how to make, how to best utilize it, you're going to kind of fall behind because you're not going to be able to keep up with everyone else's kind of productivity and output. At the same time, there have been tenets, I think, of SEO that, largely have been true for a while, which is, prioritizing the user experience, creating great content, link building as just a service where, that it matters. And there was, a Google leak recently that, anyone who in the SEO space has at least sort of knew that this had happened, even if we haven't kind of gone through all the documentation, where Google really talked about, some of the ranking factors and sort of confirmed inadvertently that what we all knew, which is things like backlinks really matter, among other things. But there were some nuances there too. And so I try to just think about doing good work for the client, prioritizing the user experience, creating great content, whatever that might be, whether that's blog written content, whether that's something on social or video or whatever really is best suited for their industry and their target market. Let the SEO gods do the rest. It isn't a science. You cannot guarantee that if you put 2 parts of this and 3 parts of this, that you're going to get 5 parts of this. It doesn't always work like that. You're trying to leverage your experiences and your best practices to lead down a path that has worked before, but it doesn't always, that's marketing though. I mean, I've done so many marketing things on behalf of myself over the years where I spent money and I didn't get the results I was hoping for, as part of the experimentation, journey of marketing.
Okay. Let's do some, old school kind of SEO, the game of do's and don'ts. Give us some SEO do's and don'ts.
Do's, I believe, is to have a high performing website that, is optimized for mobile, responsive, has a good user experience. I think, things like that will never steer you in the wrong direction. Don't would be to assume that you have to do all the different things that you hear other people doing or that they're getting success from. So for example, blogging can work, but it may not suit your industry. It may not suit your target market. It may not suit your skill set. So don't just assume you have to do blogging. You have to do SEO, link building. You have to be active on every social media channel.
Oh my gosh. Amen to that, man. I see, and I'm talking huge brands who you can just see the decision is, oh, there's a new platform and I'll just use TikTok because it's one of the more relatively new ones. And brands rush to it because other brands are on it without, one thought of strategy behind it. And they just feel like it's FOMO. We need to be on here. And it just blows my mind when I see stuff like that. So what you just said really resonates and it happens, believe me, all the time.
Yeah. There's just a lot of, we need to be keeping up with the Joneses type of mentality. Yep. But just like a poorly executed strategy is just generally kind of like a waste of time, of everybody's time. It's not going to get you the results that you want. And maybe it will make you look bad in the process.
Do you get that from clients sometimes who, how does if they ask you to do stuff and it's not the right thing to do?
It happens occasionally. Usually we're able to identify it relatively early on where they will sort of come to us and they'll express interest in some of our services. And our services are fairly kind of like niched. We do a number of things, but there's probably a lot more things we don't do. And so, they'll kind of come to us and we will do a bit of an analysis as part of like the sales conversation. And sometimes the finding is this just isn't a good fit for you. There's not enough to work with. Your expectations versus what we believe is going to be reality are not aligned. And occasionally we'll turn people away, or they'll turn themselves away. it does happen. But in general, we try to avoid doing work that we don't think is going to benefit the client, even if they want it, because at the end of the day, they are going to be looking for the results. And if they don't get them a couple months later, you're going to have to answer for that. And it's an unpleasant conversation.
What are some misconceptions people still have about SEO, do you think? Like in terms of even keywords and just in general, when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, I think that there's still a number of people that are probably just way back in the dark ages of things like keyword stuffing, or really, using low quality links and all this good stuff, or that they can just produce thousands of pages or about nonsense or whatever. Once in a blue moon, that does work. And then whoever is doing it kind of goes on and talks about how they did this thing. And it just continues to spread the reputation that, these things kind of function. And for the most part, they don't. But once in a while, everything will still kind of work in some particular case. And so, yeah, I've never been a big kind of black hat kind of guy in the SEO space. And I've never, been, so those tactics have never been, I've never been particularly fond of them. But, once in a while, sure, they can work. But I don't think they're a real sound strategy for most cases.
Yeah, I completely agree. All right, let's put your crystal ball hat on. Say that again. Where's SEO going in 3, 5, 7, 10 years? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, this is one of those, interesting sort of existential concerns that we sort of have. Obviously, there's been some concerns about the way search behavior might be changing with the introduction of tools like a ChatGPT, and if that is going to be where more queries and things are going to go. We also see Google incorporating SGE, which is essentially kind of their AI bot that will give you the answer when you run a search and will sometimes reduce the click-through rate. And so I don't think search volume is changing, because people still have a need to know what they've always wanted to know, but their need to maybe get that from content on a website maybe being reduced because they may be basically getting those answers earlier. Especially many searches are very simple, question and answer type things. They don't necessarily require 2,000 words to understand how many championships Michael Jordan won or whatever it is. All you need to know is 6 or something. You just kind of want to know the answer. So I do think that we're going to see somewhat of a reduction in click-through rate for some of the more top of the funnel style content. And so people, what I'm seeing now more of is founders and members of the company looking to kind of put them their personal brand forward on, place on social media, on LinkedIn, as a way to basically develop the audience to kind of sell and promote their products and services, because they can't always count on search generating everything that they need. But, the short answer is, I don't really know. That's the short answer.
No. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you're the expert who wanted to, get your thoughts on it. That's an honest.
Yeah. I mean, my honest answer is, I have some opinions, but they're probably about as good as everybody else's, maybe even worse.
You're too hard on yourself, but you bring up a really interesting topic of personal branding, though. And it's something that's very near and dear to my heart, and how you foresee people leaning heavier. Is that a good word? Heavier into the need or desire or understanding that personal branding could be more important in the future?
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing this more and more than I feel like I used to, where people are just really developing this personal brand on LinkedIn, or maybe they're going to in-person networking events or podcasting or whatever it may be. And it just seems like the next way to kind of try to cut through the noise. When I was doing Ninja Outreach in 2018, and I launched kind of my first marketing software, I really didn't, I had no real personal brand whatsoever. I was doing a little bit of blogging, but I was far from any type of influencer status. And I was able to basically grow that business and generate kind of signups and stuff, because people were interested in what we were doing. If I sent someone an email through outbound, there was a good chance that they were going to respond. That is not the case anymore. We'll send out, thousands of emails, and the response rate is really low. There's just so much noise out there. And so it seems like the next way to kind of try to cut through that is to develop your personal brand and to basically put out real thought leadership, some real interesting content, and that is a way to actually have someone pay attention to what you do. And so, I'm not a personal branding expert, probably more introverted if anything, but I've tried to kind of develop a sense of community in Philadelphia. I have this entrepreneurs community that I run. I try to attend networking events. I'm pseudo active on LinkedIn. I do podcasting as well. So that's, my effort to try to develop more of a personal brand.
So tell us more. Since you went there, I was going to, ask about the Philly Tech Entrepreneurs. How did that come about? What's it all about? Share with the listeners what that's about and the viewers. Go ahead.
Yeah, as I mentioned, that years ago I started Shortlist, and the whole team is in Macedonia. So I've been running the business for 6 years out of my house, and at some point, I don't know, it was post-COVID, post-pandemic, I realized I really was not getting out of the house all that much. I was just kind of working from my house, and I was talking with my wife and, my daughters. And I was like, I need to go out and meet some people. There's got to be some more like-minded people in Philadelphia that are, running businesses or doing digital marketing or whatever it might be. And so I started this Philly Tech Entrepreneurs group. We just, put out a meetup event at a bar on Dock Street, which is like 20th and Washington. It's kind of relatively center city. And it was like, I wonder if anyone will show up. And like 20 people did. And it was a mix of developers and designers and agency owners, and just, people that honestly also just kind of wanted to get out of the house. And people were sharing what they were working on. They were sharing their apps and different things like that. It was cool. And people said, hey, do more of these, because a lot of the events had gone kind of defunct post-pandemic. So I started kind of running happy hours every month at different, locations around Philly. And we'd always have like different people show up depending on where we did it. And then, enough momentum kind of happened that I said, we should really kind of formalize the community a little more. Let's build a website. Let's get a members directory. We started a Slack workspace. And so now we've been continuing to do events every month. We still do the happy hours, but we've done other events like, we've done startup pitch events where different, Philly-based startups will pitch their concepts. We've done panels and QA discussions. I have a talk in Cherry Hill in South Jersey about SEO with an agency there. We're just doing, events a couple times a month, and usually a couple dozen people turn out. And we have a nice Slack workspace as well with like over 500 people in it, and people are kind of asking questions and, sharing knowledge. And it's been good. It's helped me a lot just to connect better with the community, to feel closer to Philadelphia and the community here.
I think it's a great idea. And then tell us about the podcast.
It's kind of a weird, one would think that running Shortlist for 6 years, I would start a podcast for that business. Is kind of a logical choice, but I just was never really, just never really occurred to me. But then with Philly Tech Entrepreneurs, I was thinking about what are some different ways to provide content for the community and to get to know community members. So I started a podcast for Philly Tech Entrepreneurs. We call it the Philly Tech Connect podcast. And it's just once a week. We put it out on Thursday, and it's where I talk with a member of the community, and we just kind of get to know them. It's really short. It's like 15 minutes each. It's just kind of hey, what are you working on? Tell us a little bit about yourself. And it's a whole myriad of people, because everyone's coming from different backgrounds of real estate and legal and finance and marketing and product and all these different things. And I've been doing it for about 6 months or so, and it's cool.
Well, listen, this has been an amazing conversation. I cannot thank you enough. It's been, hopefully you got something out of it. I know the viewers and listeners will definitely get something out of this, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And to learn more about Shortlist, go to shortlist.io. And the podcast is called Philly Tech Connect Entrepreneurs. Did I get that right?
Philly Tech Connect. Yeah. Philly Tech Connect podcast, or phillytechentrepreneurs.com will be the community.
And the podcast is available everywhere, Apple, Spotify, all the usual suspects.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, Dave, my friend, thank you so much. We will definitely meet in person, since we're both in Philly for sure at some point. Thank you again.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, I'm the guy from the video you just saw. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Now do yourself a favor. If you haven't already, subscribe to our content. Believe it or not, unconfirmed rumors and reports, you will see an increase in 20% in organic traffic just by subscribing. Okay, maybe not, but it's fun, right? But do yourself a favor, really. Subscribe to our content. You won't be sorry. Thanks.